so that they're not wrong about their intuition in trusting what you're doing and your abilities and your capabilities as well. Now, the reason I brought about this topic is I've seen the level of competence with which people, or we brought about this topic, I've seen the level of competence and dedication to craft with which people do their job, and many times I'm left in awe and I'm amazed at how people do what they do. Now, it's not just about sitting in the office or white-collar jobs. That's absolutely not it. In businesses as well, the excellence level in the delivery of your craft. Say for instance, I'm selling maybe something as small as akara on the street and yam. There's that person who, aside from knowing how to cook or to fry akara and yam, the taste of the akara is consistent. That's where mastery comes in. A person who has mastered their craft, even if you drop them in the middle of an ocean, they will thrive. Because having done that thing competently over and again, they have mastered the art of doing that job and doing it exceedingly well. And I think that this is a level that everybody should aspire to be. We are all a work in progress as human beings, and it is important that we understand the intricacies of these things so that we don't find ourselves dilly-dallying somewhere. There's one thing I said last week, and I heard it from somebody. You guys, I always talk about Vusi Tembekwayo because that's somebody that I quite listen to from time to time. And one thing that I have learned listening to that podcast is a person of value cannot be outdone. A person of value cannot be, while they say everybody is dispensable, there are people that before you dispense them, you would think twice.
It's not even about them as a person.
It's not about them. You might hate them.
It's about what they're offering.
Yes, you might hate them
their
as
skills,
a person.
Their knowledge, their competence is indispensable. So no matter how many people may come, no matter how many people you may employ or how many people may try to take over the space, that competence is always going to be a vacuum, because that ability is what they have, that ability to bring that satisfaction. And that is why when I started defining competence, I tried to say you do it from top to bottom. You take it from bottom top with all of that, that zeal. There is zeal, because you have to be zealous for you to be competent. If you're not zealous about something, if you're not passionate about something, there is no way you can be competent on it. You can't be competent with something that you're not passionate about. So for me, I see that these two things, they work together, and it's about like an all-round kind of thing. You don't do one and you leave the other one and call yourself you're competent. When you're competent, it shows all through and all through, because even your ability to be spontaneous, your ability to just do things even without preparation is just there for me.
But the thing is, when you're talking about your ability to be spontaneous and do it on the spot, like do things, there's something you said the last time.
Like you, even without preparation, sometimes you just do it
on the spot. So that's the thing with mastery.
You've mastered it already.
It affords you the opportunity to do that thing. You have the information on your fingertips. So now, you see, I told you we're quite overzealous when it comes to talking about competence, and I've seen myself have this conversation time and again. Even yesterday, I was speaking to a couple of people, and this was like the center of our conversation. Now, there was a job opening somewhere. And a friend of mine was like, you just had a baby, right? And you're struggling. You don't have, we all know what it is to like have a baby this time, and you're struggling. You don't have a job. There's this job I have seen. You don't need to go to job. You go to the job, like you go to work once a week to just take once a month to take the instruction for the month, and you're going to be paid a certain amount of money. And she told this person that, and the person was like, okay, I'll take the job. All right. And 1 week into the job, there are deliverables. Like you can work from home. There are deliverables.
Okay.
What am I? You are expected to make these calls from this time to this time. You're expected to reach out to these people for this time. It started becoming a problem, because this person is now asking the person that gave you a job, where will I keep my child? Where will I do this? Where will I do that? Where will I do that? And I'm like, see, this is something that is gradually fading out in the culture, in the work culture these days, because you see a lot of young people, they'll take up jobs. Now, Firstly, because they take it up for the wrong reasons, which is to earn money.
Yeah, money.
Much more than earning money, we should be able to contribute our own quota to nation building and the building of a company and an institution or wherever we are. I personally feel out of line when I'm trying to ensure that a place grows or something grows and I'm incapacitated or I'm incapable of doing that at every point in time. Now, having that conversation and listening to that story just took my mind back to how people treat the jobs that they have and how people treat the responsibilities that are assigned to them. Your competence level, there are different aspects or there are key aspects of competence, which is the number one we'll be talking about, and is skills. Both practical and technical abilities required for a task. I'll use journalism as an example. One of the things that you should do as a journalist is your ability to gather and verify information. So much so that whatever you talk about is verified 100%. So because it's a very delicate profession, you do not misinform your audience, you do not misinform people, and you take them the wrong path, right? So one of the major things you should do is your ability to gather the information and verify the information. But if I want to be a competent person, I know that aside from gathering that information and verifying that information, how I present that information is key as well. And that's where skills come in. I have the information. How do I pass this information across to the people? So it's not about getting the information. It's not about having the advantage of verifying the information. But how am I going to pass out this information to people?
How is another thing.
Exactly. This is what a competent person thinks. Not just about one aspect. Every single aspect. So if I'm excelling in gathering information, I should excel in passing the information. It's a holistic approach. So I don't have to leave it one-sided. I have to grow. You know, I would also always use the Bible as an example. It says, "It is my desire that you prosper prosper in all things, even as your soul prospereth." So it means that your soul is not the only thing that should prosper. You as a person should also prosper. So in your job, while you are excelling in the aspect of gathering information, the skills that are required to pass across that information to your audience is also one important thing. So that is one key aspect of competence that everybody should look at.
Yeah. And then I'm moving on to the fact that you need to understand your job, what your job entails, the processes, the systems. You know, it's one thing having passion, it's one thing wanting to be competent, but having the knowledge is very important. You could have all of the skills, you know, have what it takes and everything, but if you do not have a wide knowledge of what that job is, you may find it very difficult. I'm going to give an instance again. Maybe it's journalism, for instance, because you know how to go to the field, report news. You know, when you do the voiceover, everything will be excellent. When you interview people, they will just marvel because your voice is exceptional and everything. But somehow, there are some things about the profession that you may not know as a person. For instance, I would say that at this point, maybe when you're interviewing someone, you're not supposed to stand right in front of them, or you know, there is a way you hold the mic. There is a way you're supposed to hold the mic and stand, but you do not have an idea about that. So it's definitely going to impede on your competence as a person. And then another thing is the way you're asking the question. There are some persons that if you ask them questions while interviewing them, they may not answer you because you are not doing it the way you're supposed to do it. Not because you do not know the right questions to ask, but the how is another thing. The process you're asking them that question, you may not get what you want from them because they are not going to answer you because of the way you're trying to put it, and also the way you pass information. For instance, as a professional journalist, you would say, oh, maybe you heard, or there are some terms you use that it will pass off. It will drive on like you don't have an idea of what you're saying. You know. But if you know, you have the knowledge, you're beginning to quote sources, you're saying, oh, this is there. Sometimes we sit here, we give you some of the health information, not because we are doctors, we are not certified doctors, I've never even been to a medical school, but the job gives you that authority. Right. But as much as you have that authority, what backs up that authority is the knowledge for you to be able to defend that authority that the job gives to you. So if you do not have the wide knowledge of the subject matter or what that job is about, the process or how the system works in that job, no matter the authority that job may give to you, you may find it difficult to deliver that competence. So having knowledge in your field is one thing that drives competence, makes you to be a competent person. It's very important for you to always, study ahead, because these are some of the ways I feel that you could improve on that knowledge aspect, and I think that the knowledge thing comes with experience as well. As much as I was trying to say, it's not entirely competence, experience also has a way of giving you knowledge. Why? Let me say this. Maybe because you interviewed someone and they didn't answer you, and maybe a senior colleague saw it, that had that experience before, saw it, and then told you that, okay, maybe because of this way you asked the question, next time you should ask like this. The next time you're going to the field, you are not going to ask the same way you asked, because you've had that experience and you've already gathered a first-hand experience of what you are no longer doing it the other way that you did, that you could not get efficient results as you wanted. So you're definitely not going to do it the same way. I used to have a boss that gave a story. He's always saying the story because anytime he wanted to give us an instance as to why he does not stop to speak to us, he said that there was a time that a young man who was employed in a factory or something like that spoiled a machine. And somehow the office fixed it, and then he was not sacked, even though it was a very delicate machine, something that was very crucial at the moment, but he was not sacked. And then when he approached the boss, he was like, why wasn't I sacked despite what I did? And
he approached his boss.
Yes. Okay. Because there is a level of offense. You offend somebody, yes, you start feeling guilty if they don't take the action you're expecting. So he went to the management, and somehow he was told that they would not just let him go because he has used their ground as a learning ground. And then that experience he's taking it to somewhere else. So now that he has spoiled that one, next time in the process of working, he would know that if he touches that or that and does not touch the right one, he's going to spoil. So he's not going to do it again. But if they sack him and go and bring another person, what is the guarantee that
the person will not make that mistake
and spoil their machine again? So let him be there as a point of contact to the ones that are likely to be employed. So awesome. These are some of the things that some people who have managerial skills tend to look at. So that experience will eventually make him to be competent, that anytime he's looking at that machine, he has no option than to be competent, because he knows that something like that happened before. Even though a drastic measure was not taken, he learned in a different perspective. So for me, knowledge will also always be like a driver of competence. You need to know more, and you shouldn't stop trying to know more.
Right. You guys already heard it. This is what we're talking about. It's Eagles 102.3 FM, and it is your radio experience you can count on. If you're just joining us, we have been talking competence, and yes, we'll go to the third key aspect of competence, and the third is attitude. Now, the mindset and approach to executing tasks, diligence and responsibility. When I talk about attitude many times, is something that, again, I'm very particular about, because mindsets are very powerful. They form ideas, they form patterns in the life of a person. How someone thinks is a reflection of how well they know and how well they have researched. Now, I posted something on my socials one day, and what I posted was, be so good at what you do that nobody ever becomes a threat to you. Maybe the person can be an example, maybe the person can be your mentor, maybe the person can be your teacher, but never a threat to me. Isn't it sick that people see people they should learn from as their competition or as their threat? Now, one time there was a master class. We all paid for this master class, of course. And they were teaching something in the master class. Many times it happens where you pay for something and you go and see that I even know this thing that I went to go and
you
pay.
have that feeling.
I have that.
You already know.
I already know this thing. So why did I pay for it? I can tell you that maybe 80% of the people seated in that masterclass felt the same way, that we all paid money, but we know these things. But that one person stood up and was at every point trying to challenge the person that organized the masterclass. And the man is like, why did you pay?
If you knew everything,
why did you pay? This is the attitude that some people have towards their job.
Like they know already. So
everything, like I say, is a learning process. Every day. See, no matter how much time I have spent doing what I do, I learn newer dimensions to doing them.
There is always something for you to take home
newer strategies to doing them. Before now, you might just come and you don't crack jokes, you just go straight to reporting the business of the day.
Yeah.
Then I realized that it makes the presentation quite boring, so people might not be able to relate that. Then I started implementing that tool. Also, I noticed that sharing personal experiences in the course of your presentation
makes whatever it is you're saying relatable.
Exactly. There's some level of oneness between the person speaking and the person listening.
There will always be someone to relate to what you're saying.
There's always going to be somebody relate. So our approach and our approaches or our mindset and how we do our job drives our competence level. So if I'm diligent in my responsibility, if I'm diligent doing what I'm supposed to be doing, my attitude is different from a person who wants to get the job done and just get out. Do you understand?
Yes.
So it's, for instance, a builder comes and says, oh, we want to build this house, we want to use the best cement, we want to use the best product, we want to use the best of everything in the house. The person who is laying the bricks might have zero concern for that, even though they ought to be concerned about how everything is being layered, the steps, the procedures and everything. But the person who has the project, right, because of their competent level, they will now be the ones to go around and say, oh, although we are finished building the house, let us do the extra check. Sir, is the lighting okay? Sir, is this fence, or is it okay? Is anything okay? Competence wants you to finish your job to the point of excellence.
Paying attention to details.
A person who has the right attitude towards their job, that person in no distant time becomes a competent person. So in my job, I'm doing it not just as a job or not just to fulfill my salary obligations. Remember, I always will say the relationship between an employer and an employee is symbiotic. I get from you, you get from me. That's how it's a give and take kind of relationship, right? But regardless of that fact, my attitude to that job tells whether I'm a competent person or I am not a competent person. You might not like somebody, but because you guys have something to do, you have to drop your differences aside and get the job done. You might not like the face of the person that is teaching you. In most of these masterclasses, especially tech, the people don't look like what they know. Knowledge is not...
Never judge a book by its cover when it comes to knowing things.
Exactly. Some of these people don't even look like what they know.
Unfortunately, a lot of employers actually look at the person. You cannot take away the place of looks when it has to do with the workspace. But some employers make this mistake by going for what people
the person looks like.
They first of all undermine you. They're like, can you really do this? And then you just give them a chance, and before you know it, and then they are convinced. They are convinced that, oh, this person can actually do this, and we're actually very fast to have judged them by what they look like. Someone may not look all dressed up or all neat or all of that, but what they have in their head can actually make your company to grow so fast.
On the contrary, do you know that some people look well? You can look very presentable. And people say that. No, not that. Some people will now say that this person is only guy, this person knows. The person does not know anything.
No.
It happens. It's a two-way street.
There are people who actually have it all. There are people that do not care about what they look like, but at the same time, they have so much to offer. But for me, if you would ask me, I think that having the two in one will always be the best. But if you cannot have the other one, you're not doing anything with looks. And I think that somehow people will
what do you say?
You're
not doing anything with looks?
No, I'm saying that looks, you might be particular about looks, but like I'm saying, if you want your company to move forward, like I was trying to get to a point where I would say that looks can be worked on. There is a reason I said looks can be worked on, because if you come to an environment where all of your colleagues are trying to At least somehow you will have some kind of motivation, and then you could also speak to the person that, the reason we hired you because you have something to offer, but this is how we do here. This is what we do here. We believe in corporate this, we believe in corporate that. You always have to be, you must not be caught on fresh. And so I think that way the person would learn to adjust, and then it's a win-win for you as a company. Yes.
So yes, putting forth the right attitude to work is one of the key aspects of competence. You must have the right outlook and you must have the right attitude. And the final key aspect of competence would be standards, which is performing tasks according to predefined benchmarks or criteria.
Yes, there are already set standards. For instance, if something is being done like this, or there is something for us in the media, there is something that people say is the house style. Yes, or this is what it's being done, or this is what is not being done. You might have been doing it, maybe what you know already, or maybe what you've been doing in a particular place you're coming from. But when you get to a particular point, this is how it is being done, because every organization has objectives. So you must work within the mandate or the core vision of that particular organization that you're working with. So I think that always working according to the standards that have been set, or the predefined benchmark, will always be a way to go, because they already have a vision and you need to work towards that vision.
Right. So then we also have 3 basic levels of competence, and the first is basic competence. That's just your ability to perform the fundamental task under supervision. Now there's intermediate competence. That means you can perform your task independently with moderate proficiency. And then there's advanced competence, high proficiency, and the ability to solve problems, adapt to changes, and work autonomously, and which I think should be the goal of every person here. Because again, you need to give your employer much more reason to employ you and keep you on the job rather than the certificate that you have. So they might employ you because you have that certificate, but what keeps you in that job is your ability to prove to them that regardless of what my certificate says, I can perform a host of functions unsupervised. And in fact, if I'm employing a staff, one of the things I look out for is their ability to carry out the task unsupervised. I don't have to be dragging you everywhere before you do your job. You should be able to carry out your responsibility unsupervised. Now let's go on to mastery. I know we have talked a bit about mastery. We're talking mastery and competence. And trust me, we love you. That's why this conversation is coming on, because things are drastically changing. In a climb where we are gradually drifting from having to do manual labor, AI is gradually taking up the workspace, not to displace everybody, but to displace the people who lack mastery and competence in their job.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, I say this all the time, you can bring AI, but AI will not be Martha, and AI will not be Cassandra, because there's something that Cassandra has to give, and there's something that Martha has to give that the AI cannot give, because it is thoughtful. But in our cases, we think for ourselves, so we relate with examples, we relate with situations much better than the AI can do. So say for instance, they give you a job, they want to downsize. They'll downsize the person who works like the AI.
Yeah.
The person who has an extra thing to give remains on the job. So now, what is mastery? Mastery is a higher level of proficiency. We talked about competence, doing your job and all of that. But mastery is a higher level of proficiency, and it signifies complete control or command over a skill or a field. Now, it implies an expert status where an individual not only understands and executes tasks at high level, but also innovates, mentors others, and demonstrates consistent excellence. And let me tell you, once you get to the level of mastery, you fear absolutely nothing. So you see a person who has mastered the art of talking, you take them to any stage in the world and they are able to stand there and perform. Now, during our practice, because I did a theater and media art, stage fright is a thing. And I was always having that stage fright because a very shy person. I didn't know anything about the job, didn't know how to talk to people, didn't know how to address people. So I had to meet my instructor at that time, and I'm like, my body is always shaking. In fact, my body was shaking. The microphone fell from my hand one time, and I was so embarrassed. My hands were sweaty and everything. And something that my instructor said at that time completely changed my perspective about life and presentations. And that thing was, he said, the fact that you have a stage fright means that you have learned something new. So, if I know what I know, if I'm coming to say it somewhere, I'll not be afraid because I know what I know.
Yeah.
But if I have learned something new, when I'm coming out to say it, I'm thinking about how it is going to be received by the people I'm talking to, which is the reason stage fright comes up in the first place anyways. So yes, it's a higher level of competence or proficiency. And I look forward to being at this point where if you take me out of where I am right now, the ability to replicate what I already know unassisted is what is called mastery.
Yeah.
So if you are a baker, you have a job and you get fired from that bakery. If you are someone who is not competent and has mastered, you are now mastery basically, you will become afraid. Oh, I've lost that job. But you know, the person who has mastered competence and mastery, the person now starts thinking different from what other people would think.
Yes.
The person who has not mastered their art, and the person who is not competent, when they get out of that job, they'll be like, my own has finished. I don't have that job. I have nowhere to run to. But the person who is competent and has mastered the art of their craft will start thinking of starting their own business on their own. This is the major difference between competence and mastery. And my darlings, this is somewhere that you should aspire to be, because it is freedom. It is freedom in every aspect. It is freedom on every level. Because now you are not just subjected to somewhere, but you have knowledge. That's why I emphasize on working on intangible things that cannot be taken away from you. If you continue working on tangible things, that's why if you continue working on your job and not working on the skill, you will become very dispensable. We also have key aspects of mastery.
Yes, talking about the depth of knowledge, deep and comprehensive understanding of what you're doing as a person or of your job. I think I hinted earlier when I was talking about the need that you need to, have knowledge. And this one goes about the depth, how deep your knowledge is about your job. Going away from just, come on radio, talk, go. When you come on radio and talk, what do you do outside that? That if someone just puts a question, I think that on World Mental Health Day, I wrote a post and I said that we are the journalists that people expect us to know everything. And right, because they just throw a question to you and they want you to know the answer. You are not allowed to stutter as a journalist because that's the society that we live in. You are not allowed to be forgetful. You are not allowed not to know because you are supposed to be omniscient, even though it's God that is all omniscient, but you're supposed to be all-knowing and everything. So I think that at the end of the day, what would help you to cope, especially if you're on the spot like us, is having that depth of knowledge, because away from just coming to read the papers, talk to the people, or say this is what we have to present to you today, away from the presentation, do you try to explore other fields to read about them, that if someone is having a conversation you could just chip in? It even shows in the way we
know something about everything and everything about something.
Yes, because you are going to have guests that are going to be talking. You're not just going to sit and be mopping at them. To make the conversation engaging, you definitely have an idea of what it is that they are trying to give out there to the audience. So you are just going to read, you are going to keep on reading, you're going to keep on researching to know more and more and more. So I'm writing on citizen journalism, and every day I get to know that the very first instance where the first citizen journalist did this was this, and then I get to know that maybe because something happened, there was an instance, I got it's new knowledge for me, and I got to find out only last month. I found out about it only last month, that somehow there was a person, just an ordinary citizen, who was hearing. I remember when the United States carried out a mission that took out Osama bin Laden, the dreaded terrorist and everything. Somehow somebody was in their house hearing the air the air bombarding and everything, but they did not know that was what was happening. And then somehow it was documented as one of the instances of what citizen journalism could be likened to. What am I saying? I'm just trying to say that I could only have known that because I read, because you think that it is only one thing until you read and then you discover that there's another angle to this thing. So please do not stop trying to find knowledge, because the more deep your knowledge, how deeper your knowledge is, I meant to say, is the more you would know something. Because leave just the basic part that, you come to work, you do your job and go, or it's just the intermediate levels, you do that and go. It's not just about coming to do your job and go. There are certain things that concern your job that you would not know except if you read further, if you research deeper, and try to, always be curious, even though they say curiosity kills the cat. But I want you to tap in this level of curiosity, because you have to know as a person. No knowledge is wasted. There's nothing you want to learn today that is not going to be of help to you. Even if it's not immediately, you will definitely want to use it someday. So keep learning and keep it on. Then another thing that I would say could help you master is skill refinement. You could have a skill, you have the skills and everything, but how are you working to improve that skill? How you work to keep refining that skill is another thing. That is why sometimes people organize master classes. Some people are like, you already know this thing, what are you going to pay master class for? What, you know it, but there are always new dimensions to these things. You cannot know it all, and that is why people continue to strive for knowledge. They continue to look for new methods, look for new means to learn, because somehow you are just going to have that opportunity for you to hone your skills when you are open to learning. So please be open to refining those skills that you already have. If you were a carpenter years ago, people are doing furniture of different styles these days, and the skills that you had back then may not afford you. Yes, it won't work to the jobs that your clients are bringing to you. If you were a tailor and maybe you had your first tailoring class in 1999, it's not going to work today in 2024, because all of these ladies want to be all snatched and the corseting and everything. But back in the day, it used to be a particular way of sewing.
But funny enough, that corset was in the 90s.
Yes, but you know that there's a new dimension to it. So you can only know when you make yourself available. So another thing is the fact that creativity and innovation have to play. Yes, they have to come to play. You must be innovative. Can you devise new methods of doing things? Don't keep doing something one way and then you're expecting different results. It's not going to work. You can't keep doing the same thing and then you want different results. Another thing that could help you is mentorship. Very important. Yes, because you would always need someone to guide you to the top. You cannot do it on your own. When you talk about mentorship, sometimes your mentors could be close. Sometimes you're just looking at people and they're your imaginary mentors. You've never met them, but they inspire you. You idolize them.
Want to be better.
Yes, whatever it is that they put out there, you run to it because you want to see what they're doing. And somehow, whatever it is that they are doing has a way of shaping and guiding your growth on your job. So another word that I would say,
before we go on to that, I want to say something about mentorship.
Okay.
Now, for a person who has mastered the art of their craft, one of the ways that you know that you have mastered something is the constant urge to want to teach others and help others achieve competence and guide their growth. So if you have mastered the art of something, you would want to share it with other people, and that's why the masterclass came up anyways. People wanting to share the knowledge that they have with it's knowledge that keeps the world going round. People finding out new things, people being accustomed to newer ways of doing things. These are the reasons that people seek knowledge or refine their skills in the first place. So individuals with mastery, they help others achieve competence, and that's one primary thing that you see in a competent and someone who has mastered mastery. I don't know if that English is correct, but yes, competence and mastery wants to help others achieve and guide their growth.
Yes, and another thing that could help you stay consistent and subsequently, stay competent and subsequently master what you want or what you know, is that you have to stay consistent. You can't be off today or on tomorrow, on today, off tomorrow, and then expect that you're going to master something or you're going to be competent at it. Keep doing it. But remember that you have to refine yourself. You have to keep doing it in different ways. It's one thing, but you're doing it in so many different ways. And just before we go, I want to talk about the fact that there are some things that people mistake for competence. I'm just going to run through that briefly. Sometimes people could be very confident. Remember, we were talking something that, sometimes the way someone would dress, you think that this person would have something to offer. They speak and then you're like, oh my goodness, you don't act like what you look like, or you are not like what you look like. They're confident. Sometimes people could be very confident, but it doesn't mean that they are competent, because at the end of the day, you might be confident, but you may lack the necessary skills that requires to do certain things. And then experience is another thing. And then jargons, you just hear people speak a lot of things. They use a lot of technical terms, like you're speaking so much of grammar.
Like I'm flabbergasted at you right now.
There is a word that we use here in Nigeria that it doesn't mean. I'm going to remember this word maybe in the next hour, but I'm going to remember this word. Bogus. Yes. Bogus means lie, like false. Something is false. But when we want to use bogus, we say that it is very bogus. That's big.
Oh my goodness.
Bogus does not mean big. It basically means like a lie or something that is false. So these are so many things that we mistake, So it's very important that at the end of the day, you just know that some of these things we think that we mistake them for competence isn't competence after all. Another one is title and credentials. Someone might go to all of the schools. I'm not trying to downplay. I'm not trying to downplay school. School is very important because I'm still also learning as well. But job titles, degrees, certification, it does not necessarily pass off as, because some people went to school and school did not go through them at all. So don't mistake that for competence. Another word that I know a lot of people are guilty of in their workspaces is where they are just up and down every time they are busy.
Busy doing nothing.
It does not mean competence in any way, but sometimes some employers fail to look at that. Just see some staff pacing up and down, then they feel that, this person is competent. No, it doesn't. So you really must look at that very competent staff.
Ability to do the job.
Yes.
Do the job. I would even rather a person who stays at a place and do their job than someone who is all over the place.
Yes.
Being all over. There's something I always tell people. You see, people, the time it takes you to be fake is the same time it takes you to be real.
Yes.
So why would you want to spend the same time wasting your time? In fact, one thing I prayed when I was coming out of my house this morning, I said, I will not waste anybody's time and nobody will waste my time this week, because we've got to make the most of our time. Now, you'd see someone, and one thing I always will tell people also is, you see people going to quarry the favor of their managers, their line managers, their producers. I want to be in the good book of my CEO. I want to be in the good books of everybody. But let me tell you what mastery and competence does for you. Again, I would use from the scripture, because that's the bearing for most of my knowledge. He says that kings will come to the brightness of your light. And he also did say that, show me a man that is diligent in his work, and he will serve before kings.
Yes.
That means there's an attraction with excellence. Excellence has an aura. Excellence has an attraction. So I don't have to be all over the place for people to know that I'm good at what I do. In the delivery of my task, in the delivery of my responsibility, people know that about me because they see me do it well. So I don't necessarily need to go and tell you or blow my trumpet. You see what I do and you see how I do it. That will be the starting point for our conversation. But let's quickly run through the path to mastery. You have to practice deliberately, focus, structured practice aimed at improving specific aspects of performance. And that's why I wanted to say something when you talked about all of those certifications.
Okay, yeah.
People go up and carry lots of certifications that has nothing to do with where they hope to be in the next couple of years. It has nothing to do with building your career, because you see that the course is free online. You just take it and keep it, even though you know it adds absolutely nothing to you. Now, feedback and adaptation, regular feedback from experts, and the ability to adjust to improve accordingly. Again, I was reading something yesterday and it said, let my head not rebuke chastisement, which means I am being told what to do by the people who are way more skilled than I am, but my head is refusing to that's how it's said in a certain language, but my head is refusing to receive that thing which someone is chastising me about. And then long-term commitment. While we know that experience is not the only way that people can be competent and master their craft, it is also a way to mastering their craft. It's only someone who doesn't know what they're doing that would stay in a particular space for 10 to 15 years and have not mastered the art of doing that. And that's why you see that they become obsolete. You see a tailor who has refused to learn the current practices of designing and tailoring dresses. When they come, they only sew for grandmas. And how much do grandmas really have? You know? Some grandmas have money.
Don't let the grandmas.
Grandma will not sew clothes for 100,000. Don't even deceive yourself.
You know, grandmas that
it's work people that will do that. So yes, mastery typically requires years of dedication and learning, often following the principle, you know, of hours of practice as well. Now, and building competence and mastery, like I said, continuous learning, practice, mentorship, and all of that. But because our time is fast spent, conclusively, guys, competence gets you through the door, you know, but mastery opens the door of innovation and sustained leadership and excellence. So while I'm competent at what I do, if I master it, mastering it means that I have found other ways to do it. So if I have somebody who we're going for an interview and we're like 3 of us that wants to get the job, because these people are competent and I have mastered the craft, I will be the obvious choice for that job, because the competent people know a certain way to do it, but the person who has mastered the art has diverse ways that they can carry all of the responsibilities. Do you understand?
Yes.
So both are crucial for both professional and personal growth, but mastery sets you apart and sets you top of your field. And I hope that we all picked something from this. It's a level that everybody should aspire. It gives you confidence, it gives you audacity. You know, there's a certain level of audacity that you have. It comes from you being excellent in your job and mastering your craft. This is basically it for me today.
Yes, and I think to round things up, I would say that competence is like the door that opens every other thing for you. So you need to start from somewhere, and for someone that believes in people starting from somewhere, I think competence is where you need to start from. Rome was not built in a day.
Exactly.
So work on yourself, see how you can refine your skills, see how you can always be curious for knowledge. Yes, because nobody knows it all and you can never stop learning. So these are some of the things that you do that lead to competence, and then competence takes you to the room. But what keeps you, of course, is the mastery, or what distinguishes you, what makes you stand above. You know, when you enter a room, every other person might be doing it, but the moment you pick the mic, or the moment you pick whatever it is that you're doing, there is going to be that distinction. Distinction will always be there. So please, we are all a work in progress and nobody knows it all, but we should always strive for competence and, of course, subsequently mastery of what it is that we are doing.
Ladies and Mental Gen, in a couple of seconds, in fact, we're already in the hour where my girls will be joining us seated right here in the studio. Do not go anywhere. It's Martha and
Cassandra.
Do not forget that name. We will be right back.